recording now.
Okay.
And also go into full screen. Hey folks, I kind of wish we could just see everybody in this scenario, but it's probably better. We are here for tracking tasks and work. And are you guys seeing this banner on the, Chris, can you see this banner on mine? For some reason, my banner won't go away. Go back.
No, I don't see it. Everything looks fine.
Okay, so weird. All right, it's just Zoom for you. So hi, good Wednesday morning. Here we are tracking tasks and work. So I think most of you have been on a bunch of sessions already. We're going to go a little bit deeper into tasks. Look at where we find them in Ouzel, look at the planning that we can do with them and some of the new planning tools that we've been developing, and some reporting, and talk a little bit more about what's coming. I just wanted to start by saying that there's kind of a lot here. You know, we started with this just feeling like, oh, we just want to track some things that we do on our properties. It's not really that big of a deal. This isn't extremely complex. And then, oh, well, we actually want to have follow-up tasks. Oh, well, actually, we'd like to be able to have these scheduled tasks. And tasks really evolved into, I mean, kind of a task management system is what we have and we're enhancing, which is pretty darn cool. And so I found as I was building this that it was more complicated than I thought to talk about, but I think you'll get a good sense here, and then we can answer any questions. So I have a fair number of slides, but I think I only have 69 today, which feels like a real win on these webinars. So let's go ahead. Just a reminder, we have our previous webinars. They're all linked on our website. They're all recorded, and the slide decks should be there as well. So let's dig into tasks 101. It's one of my favorite land trust pictures. Okay, so task anatomy. So I wanted to kind of ground us in semantics, because even Chris and I, who've been working on this for a long time, have to continually sort of clarify with one another that when I say this, I mean this. So a task in Ouzel is basically stuff you want to do or stuff that you did. It can be a planned task, or it can be a worked task. And so I'm trying really hard to use those phrases because I think it makes it clear as opposed to task and work. Hours or work, you'll see that used in Ouzel, and that's just a person worked this many hours, or these people worked this many hours worked by folks. Deliverables, which you've heard about in previous talks, is just sort of a tool for additional data that we want to collect for a given task. So this task, you do it, and then you add this additional piece of information. And then we use project as a way, sort of a container for tasks. So a way to organize our tasks. We don't have to use it, but you've seen us use it for monitoring reports, acquisition projects, and technically issues isn't a project, but it looks like a project. So we can call that kind of a project-like container. And then we have other stuff that that are associated or sort of attributes for tasks. So we can attach files, we can have spatial geometry, contacts, accounts, etc. And we have this fun little graphic here. So let's see. So in Ouzel, as I mentioned, we have planned tasks or work tasks. So planned tasks are things that we've planned in advance. In an ideal world, we'd be so organized that everything would be planned in advance. But you know, in our current use of it, since some of the cool planning functionality is newer, we sort of have some stuff that's planned in our use of it, Columbia Land Trust's use of it, and some stuff that's just work. We go out and do stuff, and we come in and we log it in Ouzel to be able to track all of the things that are being done on our properties, to be able to look back and say, oh yeah, this is when folks were out. We use activity codes or activities to classify our tasks. And so I'll show you on the next slide an example of ours. We have a really robust set of activity codes that links to our finances too. And so we track our timesheets the same way. And so we can link all of our work, but it also in Ouzel allows us to say, for this activity code type, I want this deliverable. So an example that you've seen that we'll show is I'm doing vegetation control. I want a vegetation control deliverable attached to my task so that whoever's doing it goes ahead and puts in information. And so we know where the weeds were, we know what they controlled, how they controlled, etc. We can do that with planting. We can do that with more generic things like add a document, add a file. And then we have other task attributes, as I mentioned, dates, priority, etc. So let's look at some examples. Oh, this is our activity codes. So again, these are very detailed. It's not intended necessarily that you read them all. You'll have this for reference in the slides. And then other land trusts some of them have modified this to be simpler. Maybe they have 3 or 4 activity codes. And then other folks are maybe starting here to kind of feel this out and modifying it. But this is all customizable to your land trust. But one of the nice things about this is, which you'll see, is that we can roll up all of our work on activity code. So if we want to see what have folks been doing, it's not just rolled up to work on the property. It's broken. We can break things out into, project development, crop farming, field inspection, boundary maintenance, etc. Whatever the activity codes that we used are. A little bit further down are sort of the bulk of our restoration activity codes, which we use a lot. Okay, so here's just a quick look at some of I thought we kind of continue our anatomy of a task in a way. So here's where you can see some of the details of a task. So here's a task, do the beaker compliance monitoring, which actually just happened yesterday. It shows who's the lead. We can assign our tasks to one or many people. And then we have our hours worked. So you see the difference there between who's the lead, who's ultimately responsible that it gets done. In this case, that's me. I assigned it to Adam, and then he and Helen went out and did the work, and he'll do all of the documentation related to that and come back related to the report. But you can kind of see the different levels of information that we can get there. Here you can see there's that deliverable. I added this arrow, and then just this morning I discovered that I have this laser pointer, so I can say there's the deliverable. So cool. And you can see we have these tabs here that contain some different information. I probably shouldn't play with the laser thing because it's too distracting. So this is a veg control task, which is why we're seeing that deliverable there. You can see this, here's our activity, vegetation control. We have linked that deliverable to that activity code. And so then we get this veg control data entry that comes up. So here, this is just a basic, someone went out and did manual removal of garlic mustard. We can put this little bit of information here, date and time. We would put our times here. I just didn't fill that out yet. And they removed garlic mustard. This shows the county and some additional information. If this was a, herbicide control, we would get more fields to populate the data that we need to track for that. And we're actually working on revising and improving that form right now, because we've improved our methods internally. And so we're translating that to Ouzel. So here, let's just make a task and look at some of the other attributes. I thought we'd just go through this. So here is a property page, and I'll go to some of the other places that we see tasks in a minute. But here, I'm going to Woods Landing. I want to make a task, so I go to that little tasks work space. Here, I get my tasks for the unit, and just a few things we can see at a glance here. And this looks a tiny bit different from previous views and previous talks because we've been working on stuff still. So you can see here, these are these little wrenches. This is just showing, we can click on that and add hours right to that task. This little icon, check mark icon, these hollow ones let me know that this is an open task. These filled ones show me that this is a closed task. This cute little clipboard icon here shows me that this is a task that's linked to a project. So this isn't the annual compliance monitoring task, which is part of our monitoring project for this property. So we just get a lot of information right here. Oh, and one new improvement is if there aren't hours, this used to say 0, and now we have this nice little hash here. So just to make it at a quick glance really clear before you even start messing with filters over here to help you view your data, those are tasks that don't have hours, so they're planned tasks still. And then we also see some of that other information that I pointed out here. Here's the lead. None of these have been assigned, but if they were, that assigned person or people would show up here. We can see when it's due, when the last work was done, etc. And we can tailor what we see here. We're still sort of dialing in what exactly are the columns and fields that we want at a glance right here in front of us. If I wanted to add a new task, I just click this plus sign up here. Now I have my task. You can see up here that this is a new work task. So this is where that difference comes in. So this is, hey, I went out and did stuff and I want to document it, as opposed to, oh, I want to plan to do these things or remind someone to do these things. So here's the task. Here's where my activity code comes in. The date, I can put some notes about what I did. And then I can just go ahead and click on the hours tab. And here's where I add my people. And these are all contacts in Ouzel, excuse me, and the hours. This shows the roles. So say I added someone, like here's an example, Chris. He might have multiple roles in Ouzel, and I can here select how is he, in what capacity is he doing the work in this particular instance. It's just a mistake that my role isn't specified here, but it should be. And then we put our hours in, and if we clicked add, it would add Sonoy to that list. If I wanted to make a planned task, I would just click on this planning button, and it would switch me to the planned task view. So I went ahead and did that. Here you can see now it's switched, update plan task, and I get slightly different fields. So I can add instructions for the task. You can see I get additional tabs up here that let me manage a task in a way that I wouldn't need to if I was just entering some work that I did, but that I might need to if I'm planning something into the future. On this manage tab, we get a little bit more information. So there's that lead again. There's my priority field again. I can see starts and ends or due. So we can leave ends blank if it's just we don't have a specific end date, or maybe it's something you want it done by the end of the year. But if you have sort of a narrower window, this should probably be done, in this quarter, in this month, etc. You can use that for that. And these fields down here, we haven't used much yet, but it's built into the system. So we have this ability to link an account. So say you have a particular grant funded project and you want to track the work that's being done against that, you can link that here. And then these are sort of neat, and I have just started playing with these as we've been working on some of these planning tools, and we can put our budgeted hours. So say, we want to estimate what we think it's going to take versus what it actually takes, or we're going to use this for work planning. We can start doing some of that stuff. Same with budgeted cost. Here's that assignment piece again. So here's where I can assign this work to a person or people. And then here's that deliverables tab. So seeing access to the veg control, data entry. And in this space, I can also add or modify these. So I could rename this. I could click on this to work with it. I could use this plus sign over here and add another one. So say, for example, I'm going to send the stewardship assistants out to do some weed control spraying, and I know that it's going to take 2 days. So there's going to be 2 different entries that they're going to need to document for their spray log. I could go ahead and add those 2 deliverables, knowing that one would be the first day and one would be the second day, and then it's all set up for them to enter. They can also do that on the fly, excuse me. But as we're planning, we can do those things, which is just sort of a nice addition. And then here on the spatial tab, I can say, hey, here's where the work has to happen. Go do this thing, do it here. And then folks have that reference. They would have that reference on Ouzel mobile too, for those of you who have seen that. On the property level, all of my tasks are accessible here. This is showing all the tasks linked to this property, and then that have activity codes. So you might remember that we have other tasks, we'll talk about this in a minute, that are related to projects that wouldn't necessarily show up here, that are more checklist items, but any sort of tasks would show up here, and I can make the others show up if I would like to by just getting rid of this has activity code. It just makes it kind of intense. I can use this filter tool on the left to filter what I'm seeing. We'll look at that in a minute as well. And then it sort of lets you play with it a little bit and see what you want to see. So where else do we find our tasks in Ouzel? So, and I don't know why I have that crow, but I thought it was hysterical. I thought we'd just take a little glance around to remind you. So remember that you know, Ouzel is very integrated. We've built all these different ways to access your information easily from different spaces. So here is a stewardship dashboard. You can see sorry, you might hear children yelling in the background because school is happening in my yard. Here is our recent work performed, worked hours done on tasks. You see a little glance here on our monitoring projects, but here mostly we're looking at task access. You could click on these and interact with them. And we'll look at how we could summarize with them later. You also have this personal user pane. So again, this little check mark is our tasks space in this personal user pane. So these are my tasks where I'm either the lead or I'm assigned. And so you can see I could click on these here and work with them. Here I clicked on one, this clean up tire dump, and it opened in the modal, and I can interface with it here. I can also, we have these hover tools. So if I pop over to my units, say I want to make a task for a different unit and it doesn't exist yet, I can just go over here, hover. I get these quick tools, and I can click on my little wrench there, and it opens up the task form. Similarly, we can search for tasks. So if a task exists, we can, and we know a way to search for it, you know, a label or something like that, we can find it here, and same thing, quick access with the wrench to add hours or modify it in some way. I can go to the global task page. So this is all the tasks throughout the system. And as I was mentioning a minute ago, you can see that not all of these, let's see, here's my unit, which remember for Columbia Land Trust, it's our property. And that's because some of these, initial discussion with landowner, are no activity specified. So these are the tasks that are coming through from checklists, but I can go ahead and click has activity code, and then all of those filter out, and I just see sort of the planned tasks to be done that are outside of that. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is what we typically would be working with. Here are my annual monitoring tasks. So this is an annual monitoring workspace specific to, so this is specifically looking at tasks for this year. And you can see the long list here. If I, oops. Okay, sorry. Well, we're gonna go look at this more later, but that's really all just to show we have all these different ways. So all of our brains work differently. We might be accessing tasks in different ways at different times. And Ouzel lets you do that. The goal is to make it really easy to work with what you need to work with. So let's talk a little bit about the planning tools. So here I am again in our annual monitoring tasks space. And I thought we would use this as an example because it's a good sort of concrete one, work that we all have to do. So you can see that all of our tasks are defaulting to starting January 1st. So this is a scheduled set of tasks that starting January 1st, all of the tasks, I'm just trying to figure out how to say this. So we need all of our monitoring to be pre-populated for the year, right? All of the monitoring that needs to happen. So for all of the properties that require annual monitoring for the year, which for most folks is probably all of them. We just have a few that for various reasons, we don't monitor. Those tasks are pre-populated starting January to December, which is awesome. So now we have them, they're in here. But if I want to be able to sketch out a plan for the year and have Ouzel help me sort of know when should I be doing this, when is this due, what is the timing for this particular properties monitoring, there's a couple ways I can do that. Of course, we can click in here, get our detail pane or preview pane, and modify the start and end date in here, do things like assign, etc. We go through them one by one and do that. And these are filtering right now to my the properties where I am the lead or the natural area manager. And so that's why it's showing a more reasonable list than the 170 or whatever that we have. We can also go through and do some batch modifying. So I can click on several. You see this up here that's showing, okay, you're doing a big batch change. And then it gives us some options of, say we want to edit the records, and then we can go in here and currently these are the things that we can batch edit: activity, lead, priority. We can assign, etc. And we could build these out. So say we knew we wanted to change the start date to all these. Chris has gone dark, but I'm assuming that we could add those sorts of features in here, any kind of batch change. And this is a very cool new view. So this is our new Gantt chart view, which I'm very excited about. And so this is that same set of tasks, but showing in this Gantt view with the ability to just sort of slide to plan. So, I can go in here and slide this. Okay, this happens here. Here's one where I modified, and now it's gone ahead and updated the start and end dates for this. So pretty cool new functionality for planning within Ouzel. And you can see up here at the top, we can, define our time period. So we could be looking at this for a month, we could be looking at it for the year, whatever works for what you're working with. But I'm pretty excited about this for annual monitoring specifically. And then of course, here's another one I changed. You can see it's updated here. And just like in the table view, we still have access to this. So we can access all the data related to these tasks in different ways, but we have this other way of visualizing and working with the tools. And this is brand spanking new. So it's some of the functionality is just going to get better and better. You might notice that the lines aren't perfect because that's a really complicated thing. This is also another new view that we have. So this is a swim lane or column, or some people call it Kanban, although I'm told that that's a very specific set of columns. But this is just giving you that different view of like, here's my bucket of planned tasks, active, overdue, closed, etc. And right now, this is a visual just for visualizing. Anybody that uses Trello, you're probably really familiar with this. One of the things that we'll be adding is the ability to drag across. So, drag over to active and it's status change, that kind of thing, or move active to closed, that kind of thing. Pretty cool. So I wanted to look back at the table view and just point out some other new features. So we have these totals down here at the bottom that we've added. And this is, well, I should say, I haven't added a lot of this data for this. So you're only seeing, I've only budgeted 14 hours. It's obviously going to take more than 14 hours. But you can see how we could start to build in some pretty neat planning if when we went through, we were able to say, okay, I know that at Folity is going to take about 2 hours to monitor. Bethlehem Church is going to take 15 minutes, Rainbow Farm an hour, etc., and kind of budget that out. And then once we're assigning, we can start looking at, okay, I've assigned this many hours to this person. Is that reasonable? Or globally, we have this many estimated hours for field work for annual monitoring. Do we have the capacity for that? How are we going to distribute it? Where does work need to shift around? So pretty neat. Right now we do that kind of thing separate in Excel. So the idea being that we can start integrating some of our work planning more into Ouzel, and have those tasks already set up, have these tools in here, and instead of having them in multiple places. This is looking at annual monitoring tasks again in that swim lane view by league. So just another view here. And then here's that swim lanes view again, looking at the status of a property's tasks. So, say I want to look at, show me my open tasks, show me, well, I guess closed is here, but show me what's going on, show me what's active, show me what's overdue. And again, because some of this functionality is new, you see, these are old. Some of our data needs to be cleaned up to work with this better, but now we can go in and do that and have this tool to help us work within plan our tasks. Now also recall that tasks are the building block for projects. So here's a monitoring project. Here are all those tasks that I was talking about that are no activity code tasks. And so, we don't want to see, do the site visit, fill out your monitoring elements for the most part in our task list, but those are in here. So this is, the project is a container. It's a way to organize our tasks. And it's also a way to easily generate things, workflows that we know we're going to do again and again, like monitoring. Here's the same idea, but with acquisition projects, same thing. These are tasks used with these folks here are deliverables. So tasks with deliverables, all in a big container, that's our project. And also, those are predefined templates, but we also have the ability to use the project tool to create custom projects. And so there's instances where this would be super helpful. I just threw this one together. This is a house, an old decrepit house demolition that I'm working on. And so to play with this, you can see up at the top, no template, I'd follow house demo, and I'm able to start just putting my tasks in here. I didn't get very far, to keep track of those as a unit. Now, I would also see these show up on my task page for the property, in my user pane, all those places, but it sort of can contain them. So when I'm looking for them as a group for this project, I can organize them in this way. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think that we will end up building out templates for restoration projects and things like that, even if they're just really bare bones frameworks, so that someone could just say, add a new restoration project, and maybe we have a couple phases over here. Maybe we have some preset standard tasks set up, and that we could go in and modify them within the project. So pretty exciting stuff. So let's see, summaries and reports. Let's just look through some of the ways that we can summarize and report on our tasks. So again, here we are in Woods Landing. And I thought we'd look at some of the different ways we can view. So here we have in the upper right, you can see we can view as, this is where we would change to things like Gantt and swim lanes. So right now we're viewing it as a table. We're able to group them. So these are some just really quick tools to get some summary reports on your stuff. So here's show me worked tasks versus planned tasks. And then I can at a glance just see that, and I can also order them in different ways. Here's that same grouping, but with just showing me my open tasks. So filter out everything that's already done and closed, and show me what's open and being worked on and what is still planned. And then here's that same organization with card view. So it's just a different way we can we're working on, you see, we can get a little more information here on these cards. I keep making pretend tasks for these talks and I need to go back and delete them. And so we're sort of playing with, what do we want to see here? How can we really use this space? You can also see that these are just all linked to the property, but if these were tasks linked to a project, it would show that sort of parent right there. So you can kind of track that in that way. Same as the little clipboard. I can also group it by time, show me what's happened in the past year versus older than a year, or other temporal breakdowns. And then here's an example of looking at vegetation control by year. So show me what's happened over the past years at this site and group it. Pretty nice, quick glance. And of course, then we can still interact in that detail pane to get more information. Excuse me, we can also look at our tasks at different levels. So that was a property. This is actually for us 2 regions up. So stewardship area, eco region. So being able to say, show me at the stewardship area, which is a collection of properties, show me at the eco region, which is an even bigger collection of properties, what's going on, what's planned. And then here we have the ability to build saved reports. So here are some examples that we've been playing with. You can see, so this is just a slightly larger example of those cards and how we can put information on them. And then Chris just added these metrics here, which again, we can customize. And this is the kind of thing where, every night Ouzel can run a query and put the results here. So we're kind of constantly seeing updated information, which is pretty neat. And then of course you can click on those reports and it brings you into this space to see more. So here's an example showing tasks by lead. You can see some of this information up here, right? Open tasks, grouped by lead. And of course, the default for us has an activity code. So if we modify this a little bit, this is showing me annual compliance monitoring tasks by lead. With a little bit of start and end dates. And then this is drilling into that search more. So we're looking at a lot of my annual monitoring tasks. My annual monitoring tasks drilled into from that grouping. And then this is a different view of our work. So this is looking at hours. So we have the task reports dashboard, and this is the hours dashboard, which lets us look at specific hours by specific people or roles of people. And again, the goal is that we would build out the reports that we want to query again and again and be able to just put them on this dashboard and see. You also notice I mentioned Ouzel will check, so you can see when was this last updated. So say we went in and put in a bunch of information, we can still drill in and get the information at that report level, even though it's not showing up maybe on the card. And we can modify when Ouzel's checking. So if for some reason there's, that's totally something that could be dialed in. So here is a report showing hours by workers last year. So this is everything that was done on the ground last year that was put into Ouzel. This cost is totally erroneous, and we have just a test amount in our rates, but it's kind of cool to look at to see, you can assign rates to folks, and that way you can look at some of this information, right? So if we drill in a little deeper and we look at volunteer hours for the last year, we can see all the ways in which volunteers helped us last year. I mean, it was a pretty quiet volunteer year for us because of the pandemic, but you can see some of these sums right here on the bottom. You have all the details here, and then of course we can group them up. So this is showing our workers with the volunteer role last year grouped by person. And again, these aren't quite spot on. We need to dial in our rates, which we can modify. We'll be able to modify with that batch. We can fix this and it'll just update. But you can start to see how, particularly for things like volunteer reporting, you can really just build this right into Ouzel and be pulling the types of queries that you would need for, grant match or other volunteer valuation right here out of Ouzel. I wanted to just quickly bring us back to the dashboard. So we saw this earlier. These are recent hours worked. But I hit this little funnel here and expanded these little grouping buttons. And so I just wanted to show you that, even in these little widgets, we can get some quick summaries. Like this is showing hours by property. This is showing hours by task. And I don't know if I didn't drill in anymore, but of course, just like everywhere else, if I said, okay, I see that recently there were 20 hours spent on annual compliance monitoring, and I went ahead and clicked on that, I'd see where, who did it, what, where. So just some nice quick ways, especially, for someone like our stewardship director who, isn't necessarily going to be in the weeds of all of our work all the time. He could just go right here, or to one of those, we could have a couple of preset reports for him. And he could just get a quick glance of what's been going on, where's work happening. Some of the things that are coming that I wanted to talk a little bit about are just more planning tools. So we're currently working on putting the finishing touches on the Gantt chart that you saw, the swim lanes column stuff, so you can do the drag and drop so that the Gantt sliders are a little bit better. So more of that, more sort of productivity tools to help us do our work. And I personally think the more that we can make tools like that really great, the more value Ouzel will have for staff. I know some of the folks who are using Ouzel, are always like, how do we get our staff to use it? How do we train them? And I think that one of the ways is to provide benefits to them, to show them that like, this is pretty cool. You could put your stuff in here and track it, and it will provide value to you. And I think some of these productivity tools are one of the ways to really get there. I mean, I think Ouzel is amazing, and I see a ton of value in it every time I need to pull information out of it. But for some folks, especially folks who are stuck in their other methods, some of these tools can really help. We also want to just improve the tools to make it really easy for work planning. I was, I'm managing a bunch of people, and I have this huge laundry list in a Google Sheet of all of the tasks that folks have, for all the natural area managers across our region, their sort of wish list for the year. And so what I'm working on now that we have some of these tools is bringing that into Ouzel. Even though we have 3 stewardship assistants and I don't necessarily know who's going to do each one yet, I can say, I expect this to be done by the role of stewardship assistant, and then group that work and go ahead and start scheduling and assigning it there. We do want to be able to summarize our work by habitat type. So coming this year, we'll be integrating more stuff around ecological monitoring, our habitat stand tracking, and then with that, we'll be able to do some of these reports around, say, show me how much weed control was done in wetlands this year, that kind of stuff. Oh, and I forgot to say with the planning that we'll be integrating more of our sort of management plan stuff. So that's kind of that assistant example that I was talking about, or scheduled tasks, recurring tasks, things like that, that could all be built in. What else? Oh, accounts. I pointed out the account stuff. So that is in there as a framework, but we're just going to finish it up and make it work a little bit better, where you could build out, say the accounts that you're working on. I mean, you could in Ouzel, if you wanted to, even say, I have $10,000 for this fund. It's all going to go to contractors, and as you're doing the tasks, be tracking against that a little bit in this other way. I don't know how your organizations are, but sometimes the financial piece is more cumbersome, to just get a quick glance of where we're at. Then it's fine for when we have to pull all that data and do a big grant report, but to just kind of have I usually maintain a separate spreadsheet for that. So it would be nice to be able to do it all in here. And then lastly, making it spatial. So we want to be able to visualize on a map, where's the work happen for the year. This is something that we do separately now in GIS. We have both planned tasks and tasks worked or work performed that we put into our Esri system, and that should really integrate here so that we're not doing two separate workflows. We can be entering deliverables where we need or want spatial data, and then we can look at that on a map. And personally, I think that one of the ways that our stewardship team could do better is like really reflecting on the tremendous amount of work that we do each year. And I feel like often maps is a really nice way to do that. Maps and these quick numbers, right? Being able to just look at, holy smokes, how many acres of weeds we treated this year, how many plants we planted. And Ouzel is a great way to do that. With that, I see that there were some questions. So let's see what questions we have. Do we have a set of planned, do we have a set of planned tasks? Does Columbia Land Trust have a set of planned tasks that we use when we start an acquisition projects, due diligence, review and approval, et cetera? Yes. So we have, I see Chris answered. We have our due diligence checklist that we've built in. And it's, of course, as Chris said, it's all customizable. Again, some of the other users have kind of started with our checklist and then are modifying from there, because of course ours is built off of standards and practices requirement and some sort of logical steps. We actually just hired, she starts today, a transaction specialist. And so I'm pretty excited to work with her once she gets up to speed to be improving that even more, because she's going to be really deep in living in Ouzel, helping transactions folks to kind of admin support for their projects, technical support for their projects. And I suspect she's going to be spending a lot of time in Ouzel. So that's pretty exciting for me to just continue to improve that even more. Is it possible to share project tracking with coworkers? Yes. So Chris answered, yeah. So, all of these dashboards, projects, everything is just available to users. One of the things that we are working on is our permissions. So, maybe you want to have an external partner that has access, but they have very limited access. So they can just see certain pieces of Ouzel that you want them to be able to see. Nancy, how user adoption has gone. Do you have resistance from field staff about spending time entering information? So Chris kind of nailed it. So we have had, so yes and no. And I would say it's uneven. Our stewardship staff is pretty used to doing this because we have had some sort of system for years. So they're used to entering something, and they've been wonderful about, as this has evolved and been refined, helping us find bugs and being patient while we sort things out. And I think folks are pretty stoked that we have this mobile piece now, so that it's not always like, okay, I've come back from this, 12-hour field day and I need to either like make really good notes or sit down and turn on my computer and enter Ouzel. Really, I'm not going to do that right now. So that I'm hoping can really help with some of that, where at least they can get most of their information, even if they want to come back and add to it later. But I would say some of us, especially some of us natural area managers who are super busy, like I'm terrible. I have to do it immediately, or I have Post-it notes everywhere and I have to remember to go back. And so I think the more we make it easy for folks so that they can do some of their basic data entry from the field for work, tasks and work, even some of their annual monitoring, that is tremendous. I would say one of the bigger lifts for us has been with the due diligence for acquisition projects, in part because we have staff that have been around for longer. and they're like, we have our system. We don't need this Ouzel situation. We don't need to be walked through the steps. But of course, we all kind of need to be walked through the steps sometimes, because if I go pull an old acquisition project and I'm looking for, like, where is the thing? Where's the 8283 that I need? Why can't I find it anywhere, right? I want to be able to go right into Ouzel and find it. And so there's definitely just support needed, training needed. In our case, we've filled this empty position, and I think that's going to really help. And I think once folks see that as you have this sort of real-time data entry, there's real value in that for all of us to be able to seeing things at the same time. Because a lot of what'll happen is the folks that have their own systems, they'll do their project and then they come in at the end and enter everything. And then that doesn't help those of us on stewardship who are kind of working concurrently on our stewardship pieces and looking for information. So, I think we'll get there. And again, I think the more we can, just keep improving the user interface so it's really easy, helping provide training opportunities. We're doing like little quick video clips, things like that. Like, hey, want to add a task? Do that, see it here. And then providing other things that could add value, like great dashboards, great metrics, these planning tools. I think that will help some people really sort of bring them along a little bit more. I would say it's really easy for new staff because you just say, hey, here's what we do. You go out in the field, you do this, you put your stuff in, this is how it works. Hey, a new acquisition person, this is the tool that we use. This, if it's not working for you, let's talk about how to make it better. But so it's the folks who've been around a while where it's harder. Dashboards, cards, swim lanes, calendar, Gantt chart. Are there additional ways to visualize project tasks and tracking that may resonate in different ways for different people? So Chris says, we also have, I'm reading these because I don't actually know if I shared my screen in the way that the recording can see it. We also have a map view, various plotting tools, dashboards. We'll be doing that later this year. And we're always open to more ideas. Yeah, so I would say absolutely. One of the really cool things about Ouzel has been sort of this broader vision of sort of the collective of users. So, we just had a meeting recently with a woman from Chelan Douglas who's using Ouzel to kind of work through some stuff in the vegetation control that was confusing for them and, frankly, needed to be updated and clarified. And so we can do that. We can, because it's ours and we're building it as we go and improving it, we have the ability as a collective to say, this could be improved, or, hey, I have this new awesome idea of how to visualize, and others of us may just not have thought about that. So that's a great question. And I definitely agree, like having those different visuals that resonate differently. I think one of the things that we've really wanted to do, like Chris has some really awesome charts and graphs built that just aren't in Ouzel yet, that will come in pretty short order. And so I always think of, you see some pretty cool dashboards with like graphs and numbers and, so whatever will work for people to really track easily and get those at a glance views, I think we should be putting in. Peyton, how does the hour record keeping work for transactions? It seems like project templates are useful checklists, but don't apply as much to workload management. Yeah, so we are not currently tracking hours at that checklist level, but you totally can. They're there. I think it is trickier when it comes to things like acquisition projects because they're all different. And I'm not an acquisition person. We in stewardship work plan to like a ridiculously detailed level. It's just the way our particular team, that's how it works for us. We're down to like we plan by days and half days to the best of our ability. I mean, it's all coarse, right? It's like looking at vegetation cover. But I think that's actually a place where land protection could use help. They kind of do their best. They know who has sort of how many projects, and they're figuring that out. But I think I could really see building in some tools to help with some of that, to help understand that workload better. because it's so uneven, you know. I mean, we have one transaction that, I mean, I think it's a decade. It's been sitting there dormant, active, dormant for a decade. And now all of a sudden it's like full steam ahead. We got to close now. And to a certain degree, you know, we can plan what we can plan, and then we just have to do our best with the rest. Flow charts, yeah, that'd be cool. I love flow charts. You're speaking my language. And does the mobile app, yes. The mobile app allows you to either be on cellular or not and update existing tasks, create new tasks, add hours. The deliverable piece isn't in there right this very second, but it is coming imminently. And we can do a lot of the pieces of the deliverables. So it's all there and pretty great. Wait, did I lose something? Oh, it's reordering my questions here. So in a previous webinar, it was mentioned that Ouzel can be integrated with Salesforce, other apps. Box has a set of APIs, so we can integrate with it. We don't have an integration built, so we just need to work with you to determine. Yeah, anything that has some sort of an API to integrate, we could integrate Ouzel. It's just, as Chris says, it might take a minute to build it, but it's all, Chris can do anything. Let's see, did we answer them all in a previous Ouzel webinar? We've got 2 open questions. Oh, just thanks. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, folks. So that was great. Thanks for all those great questions. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. Yeah, anything else comes up, let me know. You know, as I said in the beginning, this is really, I think I said tasks. I mean, it's really beefy. You know, there's a lot here. I think there's a lot that we can do with them. I'm very excited about, as you can tell, I'm very excited about the Gantt. I love Gantt charts and workflows and all that stuff. So I think that's going to be a game changer. I'm also very excited about the sort of other projects, sort of generic projects, or creating other templates. I think that's going to be huge for folks. And with that, where's my, just a reminder, we have, oh wait, I just want to make sure we have chats too. Oh, good morning from Post. Good morning. It would be awesome if Ouzel could build out the transaction work a little bit more. Post has large trying to track workload, like you said. So Peyton, we should look at that. We have not, as you can see here, acquisition projects is coming up. So it is pretty built out. It's a pretty robust list, and I would be happy to share that with you at some point. I think, Chris, is it in our demo too? If not, we could put it there and share that. You know, after
I believe so.
Yeah, after meeting to look at it, so you could kind of get a better sense. And I think, you know, one thing is that everybody's different. So you know, our transaction folks wanted to simple some things down more. Other folks might want yet even more detail. So, but it's all totally customizable. And I think it would be, you know, I have some ideas now churning about some ways that you could sort of start to put sort of course capacity estimates on those projects to kind of help think through some of that stuff. Maybe related to phasing or something like that. I don't know. So there's a lot we can do there. Absolutely. It is difficult. But we have, these are the other webinars or sessions that we have sort of framed out. One thing that I'll just tell the 2 of you who are still here is that we're playing with maybe a different format, maybe doing a little bit less of PowerPoint type situation and a little bit more brief demo, and then opportunities for more of this conversation. So we'll keep you posted with that. As always, if you have any other questions, let us know. We are here. Chris, do you have anything else?
No, I mean, other than to say, If you have any specific questions about implementations or anything, feel free to email me. We can talk about it. It's always nice to hear like what people are thinking about.
Yeah, and Nancy, thanks for connecting us. We're looking forward to our conversation. Is it next week? Either next week or the week after. I can't track my weeks right now, but so that's going to be fun. All right, I'm not seeing anything else. So I think we're solid, and hopefully we'll be in touch and we'll talk soon. And again, any questions, reach out. And thanks so much for coming.